This episode of the Mike on Much podcast is brought to you by the film The Neighborhood, written and directed by and starring Frank D'Angelo, in theaters August 18th.
And I just want to do the tagline. It's, tell me who you hang around with, and I'll tell you who you are.
Welcome to the Mike on Much podcast. I'm here with my friend and trusty producer, Max Kerman. Max, what's going on?
Not much. Hanging with my boys.
Also here with our pop culture aficionado who's joining us again for the top, Shaney boy. Shane, what's going on?
Hey, man, I just, hello.
Well handled.
I'm good on my feet, man.
So, guys, how you been? What's been going on? Max?
Feels like it's been a while since we got to do this.
It's been a while since the three of us have gotten together. But I will say, Max, I was just talking to Lauren, and I feel like you partying with hockey players is becoming an epidemic.
Oh, did she tell you?
I heard you snuck out with another hockey player last night.
We can't stop. Well,
Again?
two nights in a row this weekend. So on Friday night, I made a taboo here. It was because Beer Festival down by the pier in Hamilton, and Sloan was playing. And those beers really creep up on you. And there was probably 10 or 11 of us down there. We had a great time singing along to all the hits. You were there. You were not there. Where were you?
$40 a ticket. I was at the ship waiting for you guys to show up, but you never did. You were with hockey players, yeah.
Well, we'll get there. So we all go to Absinthe after, and the Nut was out. And
It was an epic nut night.
Oh, let me just tell you, I'm in the doghouse right now. I have to have a breakfast with him tomorrow morning, like an apology breakfast.
I told you, man. I told you he was upset.
So basically, my thing was, I got a phone call from Darnell Nurse and Luke Gadzik.
Let me just set this up a little bit. So we're all out at this Because Beer Festival. It's Max, myself, it's the Nut, it's a bunch of our friends. Shane, you weren't there. You didn't want to pay $40 for the ticket.
You said this $40 a ticket is bullshit. So I'm like, yeah, that. I'm not going. And then I missed out on the night of your lives.
So after that, we go to Absinthe for a drink with the Nut. The Nut, he orders the Uber. He's like, we're all going to
And
thing.
he was being very generous. Like, he ordered
lined up
Ubers
shots.
for everybody else.
He did. He was nutting out in the best way.
Yeah.
So we go to Absinthe. Whatever, we're all hanging out. Max is texting with his influential, famous hockey player friends. So Max gets a text from Darnell Nurse, who is hanging out in Hess Village.
Well, he was at a charity golf tournament.
Oh,
in
that's
Hamilton.
what it was. So kind of really quick, we just jumped in a cab.
Well, in my very drunk mind, I wanted to say hi to those guys because they had FaceTimed me. It was Darnell Nurse, Luke Gadzik, Connor McDavid was there.
Wow.
They were all in town to support this charity. And I wanted to go say hi, and then I wanted to go see Lauren because Lauren was working at the West Town and she was going to be closing up. So I wanted to kind of get there for last call.
Geographically, it makes sense. You're heading west.
Exactly. But I hate coordinating large groups to travel with. I just have no patience for that at all. Mm-hmm. So if there's more than 3 people, I'm not going to corral anybody. I feel like a lot of my life is organizing things, and when I'm having a night out, I don't want to be responsible for any of that stuff. So basically, I just kind of looked around and I said, all right, there's room for 4 of us in this Uber. You, let's go.
Did you wait until the Nut was in the washroom?
No. Why? Is that what you heard?
No, that's what I heard.
No,
I'm just spreading rumors. Yeah.
The big issue is that in that initial car that all went to Hess to go to this exclusive party, the Nut was not in this car.
Oh, we just didn't tell anybody, too. But in my mind, I was thinking, everyone's partying at Absinthe. Who cares? You kind of think you get to a point of the night where nobody really cares where anybody goes because all bets are off.
If it's an exclusive thing, though, this is the thing the Nut lives for.
The Nut, and here's why I feel extra bad, is because the Nut has got us into every bar and nightclub in Toronto. And 100%. He is always our guy. And he would really appreciate being at a thing like that. And I totally did not do the right thing and get him in the Uber, or at least give him a heads up that we're all heading there. So then we got there, and then your brother Greg was like, oh, the Nut's not happy right now. I was like, ooh. So I texted him. I was like, come over to the place. And then about 10 minutes later, the rest of the gang arrived. And it was actually pretty fun. There was bottle service, as we do. and it was this massive bottle of, if you're at the border and you go to the duty free and these bottles are 6 times the size of normal bottles.
Yeah, Costco size.
Yeah, it was one of those. And then I saw the Nut he just emerged and at the other end of the booth. And he was just so not kind of expressionless,
He was fuming, but he was in a difficult spot because there's all these hockey players. The booth was popping, so you don't want to be the guy that comes in and you're all angry. Mm-hmm. So he was kind of keeping his composure, but you could tell he was on fire underneath.
Yeah, that I had let him down. And then I sent him an apology the next day, and it was a very long apology saying hey, man, what I did was not cool. I apologize. You've always been there for me. I'm sorry. And then it was a very like short, kind of like it's a all good bro, like one of those.
Oh yeah,
which made me feel worse. So anyway, I got a breakfast date with him.
You set the breakfast date up?
Well, we had some other stuff we wanted to catch up on. So I was like, let's go do it. So
Are you gonna have to pay for this?
Oh yeah, I'll pay for it for sure.
yeah.
But anyway,
it'd be funny if you got a text from Darnell Nurse and blow off the lunch.
Sorry, I gotta go. Yeah. Oh, and then last night we went to Tom Petty, and Ryan O'Reilly was in town, and we went out with him afterward. See, here's the thing, is that it's kind of Lauren gets really excited about this because I think this is what stems from. Her dad is a massive hockey fan, has tickets to the Buffalo Sabres, like knows all these guys. So whenever this happens, we get to like report a funny story back to Brent, Lauren's dad, and like she just gets such a kick out of it. So go, hey dad, guess what we did last night? So in a weird way, it's more about like impressing Lauren's dad that we were partying with NHL dudes, and that's why we went out.
Would you call your brand of music like hockey rock?
No.
It seems like they all like it.
No, but you know what it is that there's a lot of Canadian fans of our demo. It would probably be like Canadians age 18 to 32. And a lot of NHL players are Canadians age 18 to 32. Mm-hmm. So that's probably where the crossover is. And keep in mind, a lot of these guys, you know, Ryan O'Reilly's from Clinton, Ontario, which is like outside of Grand Bend. Probably all of his childhood friends that he still hangs out with listen to FM 96 or Edge 102, and we're on those stations all the time. So, like, in their mind, we're a big deal. Now, the difference is, like, they're millionaires. Like,
but in their minds, you're a millionaire.
Yeah, but I'm definitely not a millionaire.
How much you making?
Yeah,
So anyway, the weekend was awesome. I had a question. I don't think you'd have any opinion on this, but I want Mike's opinion. Who has more bona fide hits, Tom Petty or Bruce Springsteen?
that's a great question. I mean, we could probably pull out the list and kind of like point at exactly what the tally would be, but I think off the top of your head, most people would just say Bruce, because Bruce is the more famous, more respected, sort of like canon all-time performer the way he's viewed. But sneakily, Tom Petty, I guarantee you, like I could probably sit here right now and name like 8.
Yeah, if you've seen his doc, like he's got this long ass doc on
Running Down a Dream.
Yeah,
is it good? I've never watched it.
Yeah, it's really good.
I want to watch it.
But every song, you're like, holy shit, that's a hit. That's a hit. He did that. What the?
Yeah, there's a lot of he did that, and it's just stacked.
No, you
set
put
list.
it perfectly. I think Springsteen is more beloved, and there's sort of like a passion to Springsteen's performance and to his fans that is very singularly the boss. Like, there's nobody like him. But when it comes to, if you just go like down the greatest hits from Petty versus Springsteen, listen to Petty's American Girl, Breakdown, Running Down a Dream, You Wreck Me, Learning to Fly, I Need to Know, Listen to Her Heart, Refugee, Don't Do Me Like That, Free Fallin', Even the Losers, Here Comes My Girl, The Waiting.
Won't Back Down.
I only
down.
know Free Fallin' out of those. But I only know Dancing in the Dark.
No,
Bruce.
you know all those songs.
If you were to hear these Tom Petty
to
songs,
hear them, I would. But I mean,
Living
I think
like a refugee.
casual.
Don't have to live like a...
Okay, stop.
No, I won't back down.
No,
Yeah, I know that one.
You know?
Yes.
And I'm free falling.
Of course.
You know?
Last Dance with Mary Jane. You didn't even mention that
more
one.
time to feel the pain.
Okay, I think he wins then.
Oh yeah.
Actually, he has a great line in one of his songs where he says, "My old man was born to rock. He's still trying to beat the clock."
I told Lauren that's the song that you referenced about Roy Boy.
That's the Roy
That's
Veerman
funny.
line. Yeah.
I Need to Know. You know, Running Down a Dream if you heard it.
That song, that My Old Man, that's so let's get
To the point, let's roll another joint and turn the radio. You know that one?
You don't know
How it feels. But you know, actually, another thing, and I was
like
going
that
through his discography. He had a couple hits on his first couple records that came out in 77, 78. Damn the Torpedoes is 79. But he had consistent hits through the 80s, and even some of his biggest songs are from the early 90s. Like, I don't think of Tom Petty's sweet spot as being like 92 and 96. Like, when you think about what was going on in music then, I did not think about Tom Petty, but like some of his biggest songs are from records in the early 90s. If you go through Springsteen's catalog, obviously he's got a lot of hits, and I think Springsteen fans would be like, what are you talking about? They're all hits. But like there's Dancing in the Dark, Born to Run, Born in the USA,
Glory Days.
Hungry Heart.
Yeah.
Secret Garden.
Philadelphia. But as far as like the monster hits that like every like the mom test or whatever,
Yeah.
I think Springsteen's got maybe 6 that like definitively you'd know to hear.
Yeah.
And then you have his passionate fan base that love all of his deep cuts and mid-tier hits and all that. Tom Petty, like you said, like just FM radio, I feel like Tom's got more.
What we should do is we should do a Twitter poll, and I want people's instinctive gut reaction. Who has more hits? And then we'll do like a scientific study to see who actually has more hits.
Okay.
And we'll put the nut on there just for fun. Because he's in I'm not sure if you know, he's in a Twitter poll right
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And have you noticed that he's commenting and campaigning for everyone?
Well,
so
he's leading the return guest vote.
I voted
right?
for the nut today.
Me too.
I felt bad about the hockey.
The whole
How do you know he's winning?
Because it show the results.
Once you vote, it does the thing.
Oh,
it
shit.
shows you. You got to vote. Click on his name.
I got to download Twitter.
Yeah, and by the way, a little piece of housekeeping. If you listen to the pod, please rate us and subscribe on iTunes. I'd usually say that at the end of the show or at the beginning of the show, but I'm just going to tell you right now. And tell your friends, because that helps a lot too.
Absolutely. Fellas, one thing I did this past weekend is I went to my very first Indian wedding.
Yeah, you were telling us about that. You were like, I'm going to an Indian wedding, boys. You're like very proud of it. So
I was
tell us about it.
excited.
Yeah. It's a whole new experience.
It absolutely was. It was cool. It was so. I mean, these traditional weddings, I guess, can go for 3 or 4 days. I know they'd started on a Thursday. We went to the ceremony on the Friday morning, and then on the Saturday was the reception, the big reception. But I didn't know what to expect. I knew we were going to go to a temple. I knew you had to cover your hair when you go in and take your shoes off. Right off the top, the groom, he showed up on a white horse, like surrounded by a bunch of people in his wedding party, different family members, and then his like groomsmen for his wedding party were in front of the horse like dancing as they had like drums and they were singing. And this is how he arrived to the temple where his bride was waiting.
Now, did you feel like a dud thinking back on your own wedding, how boring that was?
100%. I was like, man, I wish I'd been here first so that I could have stolen some ideas. And then it was cool. It was our friend Jimmy and his wife Janita, and the reception was awesome. Everybody danced. Like, I don't know, like we've been to a bunch of weddings recently, and it's like people dance floor gets good. At this wedding, the minute the dancing started until the end of the night, dance floor was packed and nobody stopped dancing.
Here's a question. Leading up to the wedding, you're telling us you're going, and somebody said, aren't Indian weddings dry? And then you were like, you hadn't thought of that?
No, I panicked, yeah.
Yeah, you started to panic, and then you're like, why wouldn't Danica tell me this? And it's like, of course she wouldn't tell you. But was it dry?
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
No, it was great. It was open bar.
Were there speeches?
Yeah, there was. Yeah, actually his best man and the groomsmen had a really great speech. They kind of did this whole bit where it was like, I'm the best man, but the other 3 think they should have been the best man. So I'm going to give them a little bit of time to explain why they should have been.
Cool.
And then all 3 got up and had sort of a speech as to why they should be. And it ranged from like hilarious to like really touching, where one of his groomsmen said, like people have friends, and I'm not going to sit here and say I'm your best friend because it's not that. He's like, you're my brother to me. It goes beyond friendship. And it was really nice. Anyway.
Would I have cried?
Oh, yeah. You cried everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my experience. It was great. And I wish them all the best in the world. And Jimmy listens to the pod.
Oh, does he?
And
shouts to Jimmy.
And his wife, Janita, is a huge Arkell's fan.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
Sam. But actually, in between day 1 and day 2,
Yeah.
we all managed to go to Buffalo, New York.
Our friend Jay Kelly,
Yeah.
bachelor party.
Buffalo's the best.
Buffalo, we should, just talk about Buffalo for a minute and what a great town that is, and recommend that anybody who's like just kind of looking for a night out, then is sort of sick of Toronto or Hamilton, go to Buffalo. First of all, last call is 4 a.m. It's very affordable. Like the food there is amazing.
Beer is dirt cheap.
You can get a box of rocks from the bartender.
Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, he's using the terminology. I'm just using my Buffalo slang.
Well, I'm going to get there. 24 Rolling Rock beers in a case for $25. And the bartender just like goes in the freezer, gives you a whole case, shovels some ice on top of it, and then you just bring it to the back of the bar and you can play flip
Yeah,
cup.
there's girls just waiting for you to play flip cup.
In every bar in Buffalo.
Yeah. And it was just an awesome night. And
Like, how when you're in Toronto, you get kicked out of a bar. I'm not sure if this happens to you, but you get kicked out of a bar. You're trapped out of the bar. You can't get into another one. There's just lineups, and it basically ruins your night. In Buffalo, you get kicked out of a bar. You just go to another one.
Yeah.
And another one, another one. There's no lineups, nothing. It's perfect.
yeah, but they're not all like dead. Like they're all like nice bars.
They're the perfect amount of people.
Yeah.
So if you get kicked out, it's almost just funny.
yeah.
And the sort of the level, it's like they're not too fancy, but they're not like
They're not
dives.
too divey.
No, they're like
that,
kind of just
the Buffalo
perfect.
dive bar is much different than the Hamilton dive bar.
Yeah.
The Hamilton dive bar is like you probably don't want to go in
Like,
there.
there's not young people in
Yeah,
there.
yeah, exactly.
You did almost get in a fight, though. Do you remember?
Me?
Yes.
In Buffalo?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Max, you got up on stage and you're Max in Canada is a big star, but Buffalo, they haven't done that full crossover. So people didn't know they were on stage with the professional lead singer.
We were at a karaoke bar.
Yeah, we were at a karaoke bar. And then these girls were trying to grab the mic off you.
Well, I joined you guys because what was the song? Say My Name?
Say My Name by Destiny's Child.
And we have a great video of this, actually.
But I think when you walked up, you thought the girls were just going to toss you the mic. But then you went over to grab it, and she was pushing you.
Well, they were kind of trying to elbow us out of the way because we had taken their turn. It turns out that they had chosen the song.
Drunken confusion. At this point, we were all very... it was a bachelor party, so we basically got into town and just kind of started drinking.
Yeah, and those girls were not happy with me at all. All right, let's get to the interview.
All right. So today on the show, we have Jeremy Taggart, the former drummer of Our Lady Peace, huge, iconic Canadian band from our youth.
Co-host of the very popular Taggart and Torrance podcast.
That's
We're
right.
on a roll with drummers lately. No pun intended. Drum roll. Yeah, please.
And actually, for a little backstory related to myself and the Arkells, is Jeremy is Tim's first drum teacher. So everything Tim knows on the drums can be attributed back to Jeremy Taggart.
So Jeremy Taggart's a bit of a mentor for your drummer.
Yeah, and in our early days, Taggart was incredibly helpful and generous with spreading the good word of the Arkells, and he ended up giving our CD to George Strombolopoulos and people at the Edge 102, and has been a champion since day one. So, and the thing which I love about Jeremy is he's full of life and is very unfiltered. So we haven't done the interview yet, but I'm positive it's going to be good. And because Our Lady Peace, keep in mind, obviously they're an iconic band, and at their peak, they were playing Maple Leaf Gardens. They're opening, I think, for the Rolling Stones. They had a huge hit, big hits in America. So it wasn't just a CanCon thing. So he has definitely seen a lot. He's actually partied with hockey guys too. So that's the other thing we have in common.
And he was in your very first music video.
Yeah, that's right. He played the boss. Another boss is coming.
Oh, the original boss.
The original boss.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to him.
All right, well, let's get to the damn thing.
You want to get to the interview?
Let's get to it.
Let's talk to Jeremy.
Everything cool audio-wise?
Yeah, levels are great, man. Thanks for being here. Max wishes he could have been here. He wanted to
I know.
say hello.
I
and
heard
all
they're
that stuff.
sitting beside the road with the spare tire getting thrown
know.
on, right?
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Well, you're close with Tim.
Yes.
How
yes.
often do you and Tim talk?
Every day. Yeah. I mean, I've known him since he was 15, and I mean, I'm very close with his family, and just he's such a great guy.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. I've known him forever now. It just feels like he's part of my family too. So, and the success with Arkells has been amazing. It's been almost like a complete turnaround, because when I first met Tim, it was at Maple Leaf Gardens when OLP was playing there, and his dad got him some drum lessons, and I became friends with the family and started, teaching him and helping him out. And obviously he's taken their complete path, and he's a fantastic drummer now, but it's really come 180 where now they're playing arenas and selling out everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's I'm the old man that's all happy. I feel like the proud papa.
You watch the bird fly.
Yeah, and it's the coolest thing about that band is they're just such nice guys, and all I've ever done with them from day one that I met them was just kind of help them out,
Yeah,
That's it.
genuinely good guys.
Yeah.
And you don't encounter that a lot, I think, in entertainment.
Yeah,
all the
no,
time.
for sure. I think you think by now that it would just be, there'd be some disasters by now, but I mean, they're all really level-headed dudes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And does he do a bit on your pod?
Yeah, he puts it together every week.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, he's like the technical producer for TNT.
Look at that. It's all connected.
Yeah. We're so low tech that we record it on our phones, and we try to keep the file small so we don't go over 20 minutes.
Gotcha. So you can still email it.
Yeah. So that's how low tech TNT is.
I like that. But it's doing well, man.
It's fantastic.
You guys are killing it.
It's doing great. Yeah, I mean, I guess we're almost 3 years old. We've had over 2 million downloads, and we've toured the country twice. The book's coming out October 17th, Canadianity, Tales of the True North, Strong and Freezing on HarperCollins. So we're doing a book tour across the country, and
That's phenomenal.
yeah, it's fantastic, man. It's really amazing how it's been real kind of grassroots based on this, what we call Canadianity and Bodism, which, I'm sure you've been with your friends or out east and everybody just throws bot around. Like, hey,
Sure.
bot, come on, bot, let's go, bot. And we've kind of adopted that to bodism, where it's almost like a religion of Canadianity, and it really is growing. Because, I mean, you know as much as I do, being in media in Canada, the last thing we usually talk about is kind of what happens in Canada. Usually it's like the rest of the world, or what the heck's Kanye West doing, or the Kardashians, or it's TMZ or whatever. But from day one, our show has been centered around Canada and celebrating our past, and people can they connect to it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to get to that a little bit later, but before we get to that, I wanted to start with OLP.
Okay.
And I mean, you joined the band at age 17.
Yes.
How did you come to join the band?
I was 17. I was really just getting out of baseball, which was all I was doing at that time before, obviously in high school.
What position?
A pitcher and
nice.
hitting. My father and I were really into it for years, and I ended up playing rep ball and then AA ball and traveling around Ontario.
Wow.
I kind of got sick of the politics of baseball because I'd been doing it from a very young age, and drumming just kind of came in when I was about 14, and my father was a drummer, a jazz drummer in like the Yorkville scene in the 60s in
Very
Toronto.
cool.
So, and he was kind of like upset that I was getting into drums because he had given it up in the 70s and felt that it was a failed path and just you're never going to make any money. So he was kind of bummed out that I was quitting baseball to go to drumming. But I mean, the learning curve from starting and being in I guess looking for local gigs or real, I was expecting to be like in a cruise ship would be fantastic, or playing at a hotel. Like
Sure.
A legitimate,
working musician.
A real what most musicians do. So I was just looking in Now Magazine every week at the Musicians Wanted ads and trying to find something. And one week there was one in there that said there was a band with some interest that had an EP and they were looking for a new drummer, and I went there, and it was kind of a madhouse of like, at that time, if there was any element of success with a band, like possible success, there was always like 50 drummers or 50 guitar players. Like
Trying to jump on.
They would just show up because it was like
This band's going to get a record deal.
Anytime you saw it in the magazine, if there was a hint of interest, those auditions would be crazy. So I went there.
What, like a jam space sort of deal?
Yeah, it was actually at the studio where we ended up recording the first record, Arnyard at the time studios up on Tor York Drive and like Finch and Weston, where they're more noted for like, Sicilian neckties and car chop shops than actually making music, So I went in there and it was like all these drummers were coming out and I went in and being young and just kind of probably dressed like a, total nerdy baseball player. It took me like an hour to set up my kit and
show up in your
They
uniform.
were kind of probably like, yeah, whatever, hurry, let's get this kid out of here kind of thing. And it ended up once we started playing, there was just an instant chemistry, It was really a great vibe, and we didn't play songs. We were just jamming, and it just felt easy to jam. So it was pretty quick after that they asked me to join, and we signed with Sony like a month later, that spring of '93.
It's good timing
started
for
our
you,
7-album deal with Sony. Yeah, and
Well, it's funny, the idea of chemistry, because I was talking to Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he auditioned for the Chili's as well.
Because he replaced Jack Irons, which he's awesome for sure.
And, it's interesting because he said the chemistry of the music was immediate, but he's so different than Flea and Anthony that he's like, it took a long time for the personalities to sort of mesh in a way, but the music was there right away.
For sure.
Did you find personality-wise you connected with the other guys?
Well, I was a lot younger. Like, I was 17, and they were all, like, post-college, like 25.
Mid-20s, yeah.
Yeah, so there was a bit of a disconnect in terms of, like, socially, because I was just a young kid, and I was obviously, because I had kind of grown up thrown around Ontario, I had a different kind of upbringing. My parents were very hippie-esque and lived for the moment, so I just had a pretty, I guess, older than my years kind of upbringing, so I think that lent itself well to the chemistry, because when we were conversing and stuff, we got on pretty well, like on a commentary level, you know. So
Interesting.
I think it was just they saw me as very eager and excited, and that was kind of like an energy boost for them. So that's why it kind of made sense for sure.
Were they? Who was it? Was it Rain?
It was Rain, Chris Ekret at the time,
Right.
and Mike Turner.
And Mike Turner.
Yeah.
Were they extremely ambitious from the start? Were you like, was the goal, we need to get a record deal?
Yeah.
This is the thing we're doing.
That's one thing was very serious from day one. Everybody looked at it as a job. I mean, not that different than Arkells. I mean, when they first started, they would rehearse 6 days a week, like all the time. And that's what you do. You just, if you're going to be a band, you have to get into a room and just bash it out for a long time. And it never really stops. Like once you actually start getting on those cylinders, that's the best way to write songs, is just to be in a room for hours, and just hash stuff out and mold it and shape it. I mean, our best albums, in my mind, were the ones where we sat and did pre-production for 3 months.
Right.
And just worked on the songs, and eventually they were ready to record, and we just play them over and over and over. I remember, like, Clumsy, that album, most of the songs were written. We went up to Duncan's cottage and just played the songs like 100 times in a row. And so when the time we went into the studio, it wasn't about like performance. It was more about just kind of the vibe. You're just like, let's just play
Vibe,
it.
small adjustments.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you have the songs when you got to the cottage, or did you write them?
Yeah,
at the
they were
cottage?
written, and we just we wrote them at the cottage and polished them up at the cottage for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you find the process, I guess, of writing records or even Clumsy, like, laborious, or was it thrilling? Is it like...
Both, everything. I mean, there's moments. I mean, Naveed we recorded for almost a year, or like 8 months or something like that, and then Clumsy was almost the same. So anytime you make a record that long, laborious is definitely part of it. It just is. When you're doing in the studio for months at a time, it feels like it's never going to end. I mean, nobody ever spent more than a month in the studio until Sgt. Pepper happened,
And that set the precedent.
Yeah, it's like, well, that took 3 months, and everyone was like, wow, 3 months, that's like insanity. And that's it. The album became more of a piece of work than a performance of your live show. So, I mean, we really took a while to make our albums for sure.
From your point of view, when you write, you record a record, you're going to be excited about it naturally. Mm-hmm. Did you personally feel like this shit's going to be big? Like, this is going to go over really well?
I
guess we'll start with Naveed.
Naveed, for sure. Like, I felt that there was I remember finishing that album and I was living on in Weston, like just north of Jane on Weston Road, like not the best area, but like we were in this shitty house and the basement was cement, and I set up my kit down in this cement basement. And I remember listening to the final album and being really proud of it and going, this is actually, there's an energy here. Every song has kind of a different feel, but they're all very cohesive. And there was a shitload of energy on that record, and I just felt like it was comparable to the records that I liked at the time.
Right.
Like I was into Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Rage and all these great new bands that were kind of popping up all over the place. And that record to me was kind of cohesive with that, and probably Clumsy as well. But I think I know that Starseed, when that was recorded, we felt that there was a good energy to that song. And I mean, I think it was probably the most immediate song that OLP ever put out.
Sure.
It definitely was. For
Radio's
sure.
all over it. Everybody
it'll
responds
always
immediately.
be a song that you hear every couple days, for sure.
Sure. I mean, as the rise started, you guys toured with Van Halen in those early days.
Yeah.
You opened for the Stones.
Yep. Ramones. It was that
Page
great.
and Plant.
Yeah.
What are some of the more memorable things? Did anything stick out from that time, or a particular anecdote?
Just once it starts, like being 18 and kind of opening up for Page and Plant. That was our first like playing a big place in the States. I think we were in Cincinnati or Chicago or something, and we got a call that Robert Plant wanted us to do some shows with them. Like, he literally heard the song, and it's like a limo, and Starseed in a limo in New York and like called his managers like, I gotta get these guys. It was that kind of
wow,
a
that's
thing.
like a movie story.
It really was, for
Yeah.
sure. And those shows were incredible. I was like, that was my first taste of like, wow, like doing a sound check and Jimmy Page is standing like at the side of the stage, and then when we're playing, he's like dancing. I'm like,
Really?
this is nuts, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then, you know, hanging out with Alex Van Halen for 3 months every day, like just he took me under his wing. And,
He did?
Yeah, him and Ed were just such sweet guys, and they really respected the fact that I was into music, like hardcore, like drumming, and wanted to talk about Buddy Rich and Gene Krupa and Bonham, and like Alex and Ed are those kind of musicians too. Still.
They're these like music historians
Yeah,
themselves.
they just
and
love it.
Study
you know,
the game.
for sure. So it was pretty cool to get, you know, see those kind of musicians.
Who was singing on that tour?
Sammy Hagar.
Hagar,
Yeah.
right? Gotcha.
But like we did shows with Faith No More, and you know Mike Borden's. I'm a huge fan of him as a drummer, and again the Ramones, to see the Ramones like up close.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
I remember as a kid watching Rock and Roll High School and going, "Wow, these guys are such burnouts," you know. And then but they're legends. They were like, it's fantastic for sure. So there was so many amazing moments like that, and you kind of start to forget about that, the starness or the celebrity thing of like seeing your heroes.
You become acclimatized to it.
Yeah, you don't. It starts to become strangely normal, and almost like it doesn't have the same effect anymore. You start to feel like it's a peer thing, and you're like, you're doing it now. You're pro or whatever the hell it is. You know what I mean? There comes a switch, but like I still look back fondly, and there's so many moments of meeting my heroes, and like just the idea of being a musician professionally and you know able to pay your rent and
Yeah.
you know just be comfortable. It's really nice.
Well, I find it interesting. Like, I was in a band and we did some touring, and we got to do some arenas a bit, like opening for like Headley. And
Okay.
the thing is, it's my brother was in the band. We had another set of brothers, but we were all very close friends. And there's moments where you're on a stage and we'd look at each other and we go like, "Holy shit!" Like, we're kind of like, you know, you're kind of faking it, but we're here. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
The chemistry in the band. You said, you know, you're almost a decade younger than the other guys. Did you have those moments? Was there a closeness in the group that you guys had?
Musically, for sure, and I think respect-wise. I mean, we were always pretty more business than friends in a sense.
I guess that's what I'm getting
you
at.
know what I
Interesting.
mean? Yeah.
Okay. So it
wasn't
wasn't like your high school buddies that you were in this thing
No,
with.
like
These are
it wasn't like
coworkers.
we get off tour and like let's go to the movies and hang
Right.
out like we did before. We weren't friends first, so it's a little different like that for sure. But I mean, it was more based on music and the business side of music, basically.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of the business, I mean, since you started like working so young, I guess what are parts looking back about the music business that you wish you'd done differently, if there is anything?
Listen to my instinct.
Huh?
You know, I would be more. I would listen to my own instincts more. I would like.
In what sense? Like,
Well, I mean, when you go through life, you kind of, I don't want to say bite your tongue, but like you think something and you don't go that way, and you kind of look back and you're like, you know what? I mean, I should have decided that. I should have been more outspoken. And
well, we naturally sort of acquiesce, especially
sure.
if we think the people making the decisions know what they're doing.
yeah, totally.
And that's a natural preset.
And sometimes when that kind of goes so far the other way, you just kind of, you lose a little bit of that instinct, you know, whereas that's all I am from day one, and that's all I am with Taggart and Torrens, and that's all I am when I'm playing in the studio or if I'm playing drums is the moment and let's go from here and let's create something that is only from me.
Yeah.
That's completely original. I can't like, I'm going to write a skit like Chris Farley today, or I'm going to, you know, play drums exactly like, you know, Stuart Copeland. You know what I
Sure.
mean? It's I can do what I do and that's it. And it's best when it's something that I feel is completely creative. I remember talking to Jason McGurr about the same thing. He's Death Cab for Cutie. And I mean, that's a band that are very original sounding. And he said it best by just saying, this is the only way we know how to be ourselves is just to be us, as opposed to trying to fill in these boundaries that all of a sudden appear. Because those boundaries aren't really there unless you're day one formulated rock and roll guy or formulated pop music guy, but that usually comes with work, and they probably develop like a craft in that regard, and it's then it becomes formulated. But most rock bands or interesting bands are original, and they don't sound like anybody, and that's why they're cool, right?
Yeah.
So personally, I just feel that anytime you go against what you feel instinctually, it's a mistake. And going back, that's probably the only thing I would change, is be more outspoken.
Yeah.
Believe in yourself, really. That's all.
And in a lot of ways, you can't go wrong, because I mean, if it doesn't work out, you only really have yourself to blame, and that's a good place to be, because it's better than going, shit, I should have spoken up or whatever, or if I'd done it a different way.
It's your
you can
life.
Live with the results.
Yes, for sure, definitely.
I mean, I guess this is also in the business realm, but like at the height of OLP, that also, all of that coincided with sort of the final glory days of the major label.
Yeah, the rise and fall of album buying, album purchase.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, the rise and fall of a lot of things. The rise and fall of buying records. The rise and fall of tour support. The rise and fall
big budgets for the bands.
Rise and fall of actually, having a band like grow and develop with the bank of the record company.
The investment
doesn't exist anymore. So yeah. Well, Canada's different, I gotta say. Like the amount of money that the government puts forth for music in Canada, and I used to think that was like bullshit, and that like I think it sucks that
our support of the arts by the government.
Well, not that. Well, yeah, it's like sometimes you see managers for smaller labels like getting tons of grants that just happen, and but like the government picks these people to be the hip understanding to where music is going. So I see that they have the right to refusal of where shit goes, but as opposed to some guy in Parliament saying, "Here's where money's gonna go," right?
Sure.
But
they ultimately end up
at
being
the end of the
gatekeepers.
day, it's like no different than the whole own the podium thing that we did for the Olympics or the way we grow soccer. It's like you have to give into it, and the fact that the American government doesn't do it as much. They might do like genius grants and things like that, but like Canada is pretty incredible, the amount of money that actually goes into developing music and developing talent. It's pretty cool.
I wanted to ask another anecdotal story, because I heard this one from one Tim Oxford, who we talked about an OLP Juno performance where you played a song called Not Afraid instead of the song you guys rehearsed. Walk us through that. What's the deal? Me and Max wanted to know the story.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's another one of those things that probably wasn't the best idea, to be honest. I think we were supposed to play Starseed or something. It was supposed to be like a Innocent or something, like a big song. And
do the hit.
And we did the like run-throughs with the cameras like of the other song, and it was totally like a last-minute switch.
And the funny thing is about those run-throughs is they set up their timing.
Yeah, and right away they were like, "Oh no," because you could see instantly their map is gone, right? Like, what are they doing? And to be honest, it was like, we thought it was going to be cool, but looking back, it probably wasn't, because nobody really noticed. And then the only people that noticed were the committee and the Juno people, and we never got invited back.
Yeah, the people that would be pissed off about it.
We never got fucking nothing. No more nominations, no more invites back to the Junos. Like, it might not have been the best idea.
Okay, walk me through the conversation, though. Is this like it's leading up the week, or like in the dressing room before you go out?
I don't know. It probably came up as a like, hey, this would be cool. Yeah, this is kind of cool. Like, this is f***ed up. People think this is f***ed up, but yeah, that's it. It was like almost like we should have thought more about it instead of like, let's do this. Like, I don't get it. I didn't understand it then, but it's one of those things. At the time, I was kind of caught up in the spontaneity of it.
It's kind of
more
of a punk rock thing to it as well.
Like I'm all for the f***ing prank. So probably that was why I was down, for sure.
In general, is Rain...
I think we thought the song was better than it was, too. That's the other thing.
Oh, like you really wanted to push this other song.
Yeah, we thought the song was special, and it was a good song, but like, you never know.
Sure. In general, is Rain impulsive?
I guess, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think... when you do something like that, you kind of have to be, for sure. And I take, like I said, I don't blame him. I take the blame as much, for sure.
Sure. Would things work in a democratic way?
Definitely, for sure. But like being in a band and kind of when you're doing it for 10, 15, 20 years, you kind of get used to how things go. So, and obviously Rain's a very kind of he takes up a lot of space just as a person, like if you meet him. You know, like in terms of like you're in the room, it's like, hey, Rain's definitely here. like if he was sitting there, you'd be like, Rain's here.
Right.
There's a, you know, so
in what sense? Like like boisterous or just presence? Or
presence for sure. You
Right.
know, and that would be the same in the studio. You know,
Interesting.
I think he's definitely one of those people that if he's not like has hands involved like at a big level, that there's less interest. You know what I mean? He's not probably like most people. If he's not doing most of it, he's not feeling it. You know what I mean?
Right. You almost have to touch all aspects.
That's like a classic ingrained like lead vocalist thing. That's just part of their makeup. Every singer I've ever met has an element of like they gotta like get their piss stain hard on there.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And that's probably why bands are successful, and bands all need a leader for sure. But so I mean, I'm not sure what your question was, but like definitely he's.
It was pertaining to the impulsiveness of deciding to switch a song at the last minute, and if
For
that's
sure,
sort of,
definitely.
indicative of how things had gone.
Totally.
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of leads to, you know, you mentioned you've chosen to do this path with the pod and the radio show and some other great things that are going on.
Yeah.
So you left the band recently. Like, how did you come to that decision, which you spoke to a bit, and it was kind of a soft exit. Like, I guess just describe sort of how that evolved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's 3.5 years now, so it's actually a fair amount of time.
Not super recent.
Not super recent.
Right.
And there's shit going on in that exit that's still ongoing, so I don't necessarily want to get into that, really.
Okay, yeah.
But
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, but in terms of, like, personally, I think it was probably there was an amount of time where I was like, this is probably gonna happen. And when I did decide that this is the right decision in my mind, I like instantly got such a feeling of relief. You know what I mean? It was almost like something that I didn't realize was such an issue with me that I wanted to do, you know. So I think it has more to do with doing something for 21 years, you know.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people don't do anything
when
for
you
21
start,
years.
and especially when you're young and you kind of grow up in it. So, I mean, it wasn't just like I was 28 and joined it for 20 years. It's like when you're 17 and you grow up in it, and it wasn't just growing up in the band. It was like I was growing up as a person in the band.
Your entire adult life.
Yeah.
Early adult life.
So there was a lot of elements of like, almost like rebellion against my former self, decisions of the way I used to be. Like all of those things were all connected to the band, you know? So when you kind of look back after a moment, after 10, 20 years, you're like, I could probably just kind of cruise out here for another 20 years, or maybe it's time to like try something different. And I kind of, once I decided that was the right thing, I was like, you know, I don't want to say we should have done it 15 years before, but it was that kind of a feeling, you know. And I don't have any, like I had such an amazing time playing with those guys for that amount of time, but just when you do something for a long time, there's certain things that kind of become common and normal, and where they shouldn't be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like
that
any
might be
long-term relationship.
vague, but I'm just saying like there's elements of my life where I was like, I just don't have enough control in my life anymore. You know?
I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah,
I think I do anyway.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like 3 months from now, and being in any band, you can't decide what you're doing in 3 months. You can't say, I want to play summer baseball once a week. Like,
of course. There's a lack of stability in just everyday life. Well, and it's interesting that you say, you know, it was a relief that you didn't even know you needed.
Yeah.
Which is a fascinating thought. That it's almost like the act has to happen in order for you to sort of actually go, oh, I didn't even realize how much I needed that.
Totally, for sure.
So you're a fellow podcaster. We talked about this a bit off the top.
Yeah,
you got the book coming out. Mm-hmm. How do you and Jonathan Torrance come together?
I met him through Mike Smith, Rob Wells, and JP, the 3 Trailer Park guys.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
He
was on the show.
Yeah, he's J-Rock,
yep.
But he was like when the Gravity record came out, those 3 guys came out and emceed the tour. And we actually, even Clattenburg came out and they made an episode, a full Trailer Park Boys episode that never came out.
Really?
But it was like during the 2nd, 3rd season, so it was really funny. Like Bubbles was stealing shopping carts and putting them in the bus, and Ricky was like stealing our rider. Like we came back after doing the show in the arena in Edmonton, and like all our shit's gone, and Ricky's wearing all our Edmonton Oilers jerseys. Just like really funny, really.
It was
funny.
all based around an OLP show.
Yeah, it was called Peace in the Park. Was the name of the episode.
Why did this not come out?
I think it had more to do with just it was on the cutting room floor, and it didn't fit with any of the seasons or any of the specials.
Like the through arc. It was kind of like a standalone.
But it's still around, but I think probably by the fact that they kind of. The 3 boys took it over, and Clattenburg's not really part of it anymore. I don't know if it'll ever come out. Who knows what? But
right.
it was fun. But those guys were on that tour, and I got to know Jonathan through Mike, because Mike would always say, "Oh man, like when we're sitting together, I'll say, hey, that guy looks like this blank and blank looking mask, right? This guy looks like this, or that guy's a Harrison Ford looking mask, or that guy looks like he works at the Bata Machine Museum looking mask, or whatever." He's that kind of guy. Like, he can just spot someone and say, holy shit, he does look like 50% of this guy and 50% of that guy.
Oh, there's poor man's Harrison Ford. I know what you're saying, yeah. Okay.
That kind of stuff, but he's really good at it. And when we first met, it was at a golf tournament. It was either in PEI or at a golf tournament. It was around like this 2-week period. I'm not sure what happened first. But at this golf tournament, he has his long kind of blonde, shaggy hair. And he hits the golf ball, and I see him far away, and I was like, is that Jack Wagner down there? Because, Jack Wagner's like a celebrity golfer guy with the blonde hair. And so he thought that was hilarious, and I had my hair like kind of down in like a broken ponytail, and he's like, hey, is that the Fathers of Confederation? So
you're yelling back and forth.
It was like, bang, I was like, damn, that guy's awesome, like right away. So we always kept in touch, and we always we would say, let's try and do something together sometime. And once I started doing the Jay and Dan podcast as a regular kind of segment, I heard him on there, and he told this hilarious story about somebody taking a shit in a Sobeys bag. It was just so ridiculous and funny that I was like, you know what? Because I started doing the Jay and Dan pod thinking that maybe I could kind of start my own podcast, because I used to do Taggart's Take back in the day, actually with Tim Oxford. I did it for Chorus and like a bunch of radio stations across the country, where it was sketches and interviews and stuff. And I thought I wanted to do something like that again. And when I heard Jonathan on there, I was like, shit, this is it would be a lot easier if we teamed up, because he's funny, and every time we're in a conversation, I laugh my head off.
Yeah.
So we just said, let's try a podcast together, and instantly we like. I
was listening to an episode where you guys were singing the theme of Panama to try and sell Panago pizza. You were laughing, so I was at one point just laughing at you laughing because you were laughing so hard.
Yeah.
The idea of the ad exec tried to sell the
Panago. Yeah. No, like a whole video with Panama, and then like the ease the seat back, get a slice.
So that chemistry though was apparent just in hanging out, and you're like, let's just fucking record it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's all that our podcast is an hour phone conversation every week. And, we kind of plan a game or maybe a theme, but that's about it. It just becomes a conversation. And I think that's why people like it, is because they feel like they're in on the conversation. Like they're sitting in the back. Like you said, you start laughing like you're kind of hanging out.
Exactly.
And that's why people like it. And that's why we've done 113 episodes now. So, for sure.
It's an interesting jump to go from, I guess drumming in and of itself is kind of like a more of a, I don't know, within the infrastructure of a band, more of a support thing. But being an on-air personality, like you said, you've done Jay and Dan, you've been doing radio, you've been doing stuff, of course. Like that's a big leap to become out front and sort of like I don't want to say on-air personality, but a personality in general.
Yeah.
Is that something that you'd been thinking about for a long time, or does your personality just lend itself to that?
Yeah, I think. Well, I know from the beginning, like when you talk to a band, you can kind of tell who probably would like to do interviews or would make sense to do interviews.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think because a lot of the people that we started, if we went out to a record label or if we went out to, for example, like we went out to dinner with K-Rock and, Lisa Warden, was the music director at the time, like we really hit it off and she thought I was funny. And so that kind of thing, it's like, well, if the way we've been kind of getting through PR enough, like maybe that makes sense that I should do interviews or I'd feel comfortable to do interviews.
Yeah, Jeremy should always be out front because it's natural.
And everybody in the band was a good talker, but I think also that I was more adamant about being like that from day one, and I was young, I think. So I was like, let's put the kid in there. That was always the thing as well. The record company would push it because I was 17. So I think, and then I became friends with a lot of broadcasters. Like I grew up with George Strombolopoulos, and Jim Richards is a really good friend of mine. Jeff Merrick's a really good friend of mine. So most of my friends are kind of that type of person anyway. Like a content speaking, somebody who understands how to get information from someone without sounding boring. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah.
So so I started co-hosting with, even like Chris Dunner out west at CFox back in the day. Like I would go on for an hour on a Sunday night, or Bob Makowitz, another friend of mine, I'd go on his show for an hour. And it just, it was always something that was pretty easy for me because I was used to answering questions and then getting used to what questions I wanted to be asked as a musician. And so it was pretty simple. I just basically went to the other side of the mic, like asking the questions instead of answering them.
Yeah. Well, I guess lastly, what is your hope for the future? Is it more music? Is it more sort of on the content creating personality side?
Well, I think it's a little bit of everything, and that's the way life is these days. I mean, you kind of have to do a little bit of everything, and I'll never stop being a drummer. I love drumming. I'm practicing. I play in my my basement. I want to jam and do that more. But like when you have 3 kids and you're trying to do all this other stuff, it just kind of slightly goes a little bit by the wayside. But it's still a huge part of my life for sure. But I just enjoy kind of the control of how things are happening with the podcast, and I enjoyed writing the book. That's another thing that I think I might like to do in the future as well, like more writing, and just kind of, I think what I do period is like I've somehow found a way to just give opinion, and somehow that opinion is translating into some business. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I look at it. Drumming is very similar in terms of like you're speaking, you're having a conversation musically, and you have this vocabulary based on all the things that you learned. And when you're playing with someone, you're kind of adding and improvising and talking musically, and this is kind of similar to me for sure. Talking.
Thanks for your time, man.
Thank you. This is great.
Yeah, appreciate it. Welcome to The Dessert. We are here with our friend and pop culture aficionado, Shane Cunningham. Shane, how's it going?
Yo, breaking news. Kind of sad news. Literally just found out 2 seconds ago, Martin Landau just died.
Oh wow. I saw that on Twitter.
That was the only Oscar winner Frank D'Angelo ever had in a film. The rest were just Oscar nominees.
How did you find out?
My wife just messaged me.
Oh, wow. All right.
Shocking. Well, he was like 98 years old. I guess it's not that sad.
Yeah.
So.
What did Martin Landau win for Ed Wood?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Tim Burton film, right?
Oh, wow.
With Johnny Depp.
And yeah, I think he was nominated for Crimes and Misdemeanors too.
Which he's awesome in.
Yeah, that's one of the best films of all time.
Yeah, I love that one. Woody Allen.
Crazy.
You seen that one, Maxie?
Yep.
It's a good one.
Wow. Okay. Well, literally right before we started rolling, Shane was like, "Oh," he looked at his phone. He's like, "Big news." And then what has become a theme with us is we couldn't even ask you what the news was until we started rolling.
Save it for the pod. We'll
Save it for
We're
the
doing
pod.
it live.
But yeah, you were kind of snickering before we started this. What was that about?
Oh, I just had a question because it's Sunday night right now, and it's kind of late. It's like 10:30.
Yeah, everyone kind of annoying.
Kind of. It's probably my fault. I pushed the.
Probably.
Yeah.
We're working around your schedule.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate it.
It always goes to the most famous guy's schedule. I think.
Yeah.
But I just saw you like walking down the street. You parked the car. I could just see your silhouette walking down my street, and you're kind of like limping and walking really slowly. Like, what's going on? Are you okay?
No, what I was.
You have a funny walk to begin with, a very distinct walk, I think.
Yeah, I hate it. Yeah, everyone comments on it. But what happened was, although I was in a intense wrestling match last night, it's not related. I got these new Nike shoes. Nike sent me a pair of shoes.
That's
all shoes. You got to see them.
Very nice of
And
you.
Thank you. Shouts to Nike.
Yeah.
but not to be a complainer, but the one really fucking hurts my ankle. So my
there goes our Nike
That's
deal.
the end of that.
my ankle is like bleeding.
Oh wow, it really is.
Yeah.
Sometimes your foot
Takes
needs
a while to
readjust.
break.
Yeah, maybe it's the socks.
Yeah, they're like Back to the Future shoes, though. They're kind of cool. Like, I guess Nike knows I don't really know how to tie my laces, so there's no laces.
Yeah.
so it's
Hey,
pretty cool.
speaking of sponsors and pods, has anybody ever investigated the MeUndies? Because MeUndies advertises on a lot
All
of
the big pods.
all the big pods.
Yeah.
But if you listen to Bill Burr's podcast, he just makes fun of MeUndies all the time. Zach Lowe also is sponsored by MeUndies, and he goes, "Well, here comes the part of the show where you get to listen to me talk about my underwear," and he clearly hates it.
Oh, I love my package underwear. That's the best underwear on the market.
No, I'm not saying that the underwear is bad, but I'm just saying that it's funny when the host of the pod, who's getting money from a sponsor, is openly making fun of the sponsor. And Tony Kornheiser actually is also sponsored by MeUndies, and he just makes fun of MeUndies too, because these grown men think it's just so absurd that this is the thing that they have to talk about. But obviously they're going to take the money. But I wonder if MeUndies has any rules about like what you can and cannot say, because if anybody at MeUndies is listening, they got to say like, these guys are only making fun of us, but maybe they don't care because they think it's all part of the brand.
Well, if it's entertaining, the listener will stay, and ultimately that's better for MeUndies. Because the minute an ad starts on a pod, I hit the 15-second skip.
Yeah.
Although I did stay once because I was kind of dozing on the train and I was listening to Bill Simmons' podcast, and it was a thing for like hotels.com or whatever.
Yeah.
But he had his buddy Joe House on, and Joe's kind of like a gregarious, like goofy guy that clearly makes Bill laugh. And he was doing a thing for hotels, and he's like, "Oh, is it 5-star?" And this is Joe House asking. And Bill's like, "Yeah." He's like, "I only stay at 5 stars." He's like, "They got all the best lotions," and Bill Simmons literally couldn't. He exploded laughing because clearly he was alluding to jerking off. So it was like they just couldn't stop laughing, and it ended up being one of the most delightful ads I'd ever heard.
Well, listen to Bill Burr talk about MeUndies. He's like, and he's swearing the whole time. You gotta be the special material in the underwear, so can grab your ball sack. Like he's just so vulgar, and it's awesome.
But I think the older you get, honestly, the more important underwear is. Like I love underwear now that I'm older.
A lot of people don't wear underwear. Our friend Sean Dawson doesn't wear underwear.
Sean doesn't wear underwear?
No.
Wow. My go-to are the H&M boxer briefs. Those are affordable and very reliable.
This is a hilarious opening.
Anyway, this is the dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. No, I wanted to talk about kind of a couple things that kind of changed my life, I guess, that happened, like film-wise. And just, it's kind of related to Frank D'Angelo, too. Because after,
By the way, we should acknowledge
We should say-
the phenomenon of the Frank D'Angelo saga.
Congrats,
And
Shane. You did such a good job.
People are losing their mind.
Rave
on-
reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people who I don't really talk to have been messaging me out of nowhere. So.
Frank?
No, not Frank. He has been liking some of my stuff on Facebook, though.
Right.
Which is cool. Did you listen to that, Frank?
Oh yeah,
episode?
I did. Of course, I listened to it.
Okay.
But okay, for our listeners, typically I'm pretty involved in the interviews and setting up.
When
the
Mike's
questions.
doing the interviews.
Yeah. Of course. But like when Mike's in the interview, like we talk about it. We send each other links for research purposes. We talk about like what we want to get out of certain answers. But with this Frank D'Angelo interview, I completely stayed out of it because I don't really know that much about Frank D'Angelo.
It was your baby,
It
though.
was your baby.
Yeah.
And also, I think at one point I did make some questions up, right? Didn't I?
When
Yeah,
we
you
were going
did
to the
like
restaurant.
6 months ago.
Yeah, for the original interview that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, Shane knows way more about this guy than I do, and he'll do a good job. And here's the thing, is because it was such an absurd episode, it was like, even if it went terribly or your questions were terrible, which they weren't, your questions were awesome, they're very detailed, you clearly knew what you're talking about, that would be funny too. So
Yeah.
so I was kind of a...
But I'm not talking about that. I'm like, what happened was the episode was finished, and I sent it to you all excitedly, like thinking you're going to respond within the hour.
Yeah.
And then
I didn't listen to it immediately.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'll listen to it on the bus. And I was like, oh, how was it? You're like, I got 12 minutes in.
I fell asleep, and then one thing led to another. It's been busy, but I did listen to the episode,
Right.
so I want you to quiz me on it.
Did you feel like that? Like we weren't giving it like its proper due?
Weeks went by, and you always had an excuse.
Well,
Like,
we were doing other episodes. Like I was dealing with Chad, and then whatever was before Chad, the MMVA stuff. There was just a lot happening.
Yeah, I want to experience in real time with the
It's
rest
like,
of
you know,
everybody.
when you're excited about something, you think other people are going
Yeah.
to be your level. I think Mike was like, oh, I never wanted to go to a Frank film premiere, but now I really want to go to one.
After the interview, I guess, my thing was because I wasn't personally super interested in Frank, I think for me, like, I needed to find time to listen to the interview. It felt like something I had to do, which isn't a knock on you. It was more this, just I didn't know much about Frank. I wasn't super keen. It's like, if a WTF Marin episode comes up and I don't really know the person, I just don't listen to the episode.
Sure.
So I knew I had to set aside time to listen to it. But to your credit, 100%, and to Frank's credit, when I did get around to listening to it after the episode was put together, I was like, I thought that was great. I
and
was
he's
super
a
into
wholly
it.
original personality.
I
too.
found him compelling.
Yeah.
All of the same things that I think our listeners discovered, I came around to. It was just getting over the hump to find the time. But I'm sorry, I should have listened to it immediately.
Sorry.
But I
Shane.
would just think I'm giving it so much credence. You'd think if you
I
trust me
know.
at all, there'd be some like rub off there. But
Yeah, no, and
Not the case.
I got it. I just was like, I'm gonna listen to it when it comes out.
Max, we let Shane down.
Sorry, we did. Sorry, Shane.
You did. But to quiz you, is the saga over? Yes or no?
The saga is not over because at the end you asked him if he could use "Boss is Coming" in one of his upcoming movies, because it's about a lawyer, I guess, like a high profile kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he had no idea who we were and what our band's name was or anything. But he was into the idea. He listened to the song and he wants to have me on the show.
Do you think one day you're going to go viral?
Yeah, things go viral and
But-
I think things happen.
I kind of spoke out of turn. Like, are you able, if this all comes to, like, are you able to lend Boss is Coming to one of his films?
Yeah, that's probably yeah.
And you will do a duet with him on his show, Being Frank?
So I talked to our manager Ashley about it, who's been to a taping of Being Frank.
Yeah.
She is a Francophile, and she said I'm not allowed to go on the show.
Not allowed?
Yeah.
Oh. In the words of Frank, she's a no.
So, but you know what? Maybe we should have Ash on the show, and she'll
Being Frank?
It would be
no
great.
on our show.
It would be great to have Ash on.
Let's
the
have
show.
Ash on the show.
I think so.
She'll-
I think it'd just be fun to talk to her about dealing with you in some ways.
Hey, yeah, she'd have a lot of stories. She knows. She has dirt on every single person in Toronto. She knows
Wow.
about everybody.
Shit.
Anyway, she'd be a great guest, and she listens to every episode too.
She's
So
great.
we'll get Ash on the show, and she can walk us through what it's like to be in her position as a manager, and when you say yes to things and when you say no to things.
And maybe Shane can convince her that it'd be okay for you to go on Frank's show.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
she's the one you got to convince. Shane.
yeah, it's not
But
me.
you'll go on the show with me, will you not, Mike?
I do what Ash says. What?
You asked me, you're like, include me.
I was like, I'm on it on that.
Yeah.
Shaney boy, if you're going on, I would 100% go on with you.
Because, what I liked about the Frank thing, I thought he actually, and people have messaged me, they're like, oh, I had a totally different perception of Frank. And then I listen, and it's like, now I actually like him more.
No, actually, I do like him
More than you thought you might.
Way more than I thought, because he's actually kind of a sweet guy, and like he was saying things that didn't align with my idea of who he is, like politically speaking, and he was like into like recycling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he was like anti-Trump, which I did not think would be the case.
Because a lot of people consider him to be very much like Trump.
Yeah. So he was definitely kind of a sweet guy. And for every like really brash thing he said, he also would counter it with something that was sort of like had like this Zen Buddhist kind of like vibe about like what it means to live.
So after the Frank interview, like I normally don't do this. Like normally I just listen to a pod after when I'm taking the bus home after work. But I saw this doc. It was kind of like a Planet doc. And like Frank was like, this was the day of the interview, which was like, I think the interview happened like a month ago, 3 weeks ago. And then it's called What the Health. But it's about like the planet's health and all that. So I'm like, oh, okay, I'll watch it. Probably
He had
should.
suggested it, or you just in the mood to watch
No,
it?
because
he was
like,
talking
I was
about.
just one. I was like feeling amazing, and then Frank was talking a lot about the planet. Like he talked about it even more than is on there. Like I had to trim quite a bit, but then I watched it, and it kind of like. It literally like changed my view on everything.
Oh, the classic Netflix doc to change your view on everything?
Yeah, like, and by the way, like, obviously, I'm like, when Coney 2012 happened, I was like, we got to take this guy down, And I was all over my Facebook, and then that guy turned out he was like naked jerking off, and then it was like Coney was this, like, I do get sucked in, and
Who doesn't? Yeah.
and like Loose Change came out about 9/11. I was like, it's an inside job, Like, I am prone to falling for that stuff. But I had other people watch this doc, and honestly, I think I've made like 4 or 5 people turn vegan, like normal dudes that we would think wouldn't do that.
Hey man,
Okja, yeah.
on Netflix made me think about going veggie.
Well, and then it's like this Okja. Do you know about this movie?
No,
It's
you
the
recommended that one.
It's
I
the first vegetarianism action film. It's being called.
Oh.
But it's like this big, fat, lovable pig.
It's phenomenal. You and Lauren got to watch it together.
And by the way, Lauren is a vegetarian.
I know that. You have
and I
to.
am probably a vegetarian. I would say like 50% of the time. Like, yeah.
Watch this movie. You'll go.
Yeah,
100.
I've gone full plant-based diet.
Come on, really?
Yeah, and I've been waiting for you guys to be like, Shane, looking good. It's just
You're looking
not-
kind of pale.
It's not happening yet. But
Well, to be fair, if your Instagram stories are any indication, you were out like partying until like 4 a.m. around a pool, and I saw you walking down the street with a limp, and like you look really tired right now.
okay, but here's the thing. I don't know if you know, for the past like 6 months, I've been so tired with energy-wise. I haven't been able to party. It's really hard for me to get the energy to muster to even go out. When I do have 2 drinks, I'm so tired. I got to go home. Now I'm partying like I used to. I feel like I'm 30 again, man.
Because of your plant-based
Which
diet?
was my healthiest year of my life, was 30 years old, as sad as that is.
Were you
to say.
single?
Yeah, I was single, and I was eating great. And I had a little sickness that kind of scared me into getting healthy.
I remember.
And I'm kind of doing that again. And now I'm a hangover that would knock me on my ass for 2 days. I have minor headache for like half an hour, and then I'm ready to party the next day.
So what's your diet like?
I eat a lot of like squash tacos, just veggie tacos. Tacos. The diet's very limited.
I'm eating tacos every
I
meal.
secretly wish I was dead. Those animals are so lucky they're being murdered and eaten. No, but yeah, and poke. Poke is like my favorite.
Danica loves that
thing
shit.
to eat in the world. And my wife is like, she's a teacher, but she's also like an avid learner. So she's become like a vegetarian cook. She makes, I don't know what the fuck she's doing, but it's like sloppy joes. She makes vegetarian sloppy joes that taste like meat. It's more delicious. I don't even like, even when I was eating meat, I didn't like sloppy joes. But they're just these delicious meals. She'll like, it's summer break too. So she's off for 2 months.
Yeah.
So she's just making me all these meals and stuff. But I'm kind of like, honestly, like, it really feels like we're ISIS. And like we're torturing these animals. And back
Weird
I love
analogy.
how Max loves this. You look for Mike for support. Mike's like, I'm not laughing at that.
Just to wear ISIS and we're just weird.
We
He's
are
saying
though.
we're terrorizing the animals.
I know.
They're living in like these little cages and they can't even move. And they're like these cute pigs, and pigs are pretty intelligent. And not only that, to Frank's point about the planet, all this. What? Max, you don't give a shit. You just want to look skinny. That's what this is about.
I like how you're being informed, like by Frank's point.
Well,
It's like the revelation all started with Frank.
yeah. Well, you heard what he said. If you're dirty and your planet's going to be dirty, you're going to get sick and you're going to fucking die. That's a direct Frank quote. But all these methane gases that are coming out. Just end it. I'm done. This. It's over. It's over. I'm not continuing. I'm done, man.
By the way, we were someone on the iTunes comments gave our pod like a 2 out of 10 because
The bro meter. What do you think spawned this? That's the real reason.
it's like these bros like have this like awakening because Frank D'Angelo told them to.
That's it. That's all. That's our episode. Thank you so much for listening.
The Mike on Much podcast can be found online, Instagram and Twitter, Mike on Much. The artwork is provided by Jenna Gregory at jennasdoodles.com. Huge thank you, as always, to Justin Stockman, Greg Stewart, the formidable Dan Carruthers, who keeps this ship, what's the expression?
Ship sailing? Ship afloat?
Ship afloat.
Dan the man. He's the
Dan
best.
the man.
Nobody does it better.
No one. That's all I got.
Shane, you want to say anything?
Don't kill pigs. I knew Max would laugh at that.
See you next week if we don't die on the weekend.